Troy Landry, the beloved star of Swamp People, has captured the hearts of millions with his tough, no-nonsense attitude and undeniable charm. But behind the scenes, his life has been touched by unimaginable tragedy. In this video, we dive into the heartbreaking story that shook Troy's world and changed everything for him and his family. From personal loss to finding strength in the darkest moments, we'll explore how this tragedy affected not just Troy, but the Swamp People community as a whole. Stay tuned as we reveal the untold story behind the tragedy that rocked his life. Troy Landry is a name that resonates with millions of fans around the world. Known for his fearless hunting skills and larger-than-life personality, Troy became an iconic figure in the world of reality television through his role on Swamp People. The show, which airs on the History Channel, has captured the hearts of viewers by showcasing the lives of those living in the Louisiana bayou, where alligator hunting is a way of life. Troy's unique blend of charisma, skill, and humor made him one of the show's most beloved stars, ensuring that his place in reality TV history is well established. Troy's fame didn't come overnight, though. His family has been involved in the alligator hunting business for generations, passing down the craft from father to son. Troy was born into a world where hunting and living off the land were second nature. His family's legacy of hunting in the bayou has shaped him into the man he is today, and he never shied away from sharing his passion for his craft with the viewers. Whether he was navigating treacherous waters or catching giant alligators, Troy's viewers were always on the edge of their seats, eager to see what he would do next. In many ways, Troy became the face of Swamp People. His natural ability to connect with people, mixed with his undeniable skill as an alligator hunter, made him a fan favorite from the start. Audiences watched him battle not only the physical dangers of hunting alligators, but also the personal challenges he faced living in a remote, isolated environment. The rawness of Swamp People gave viewers a window into a world they may never have experienced, and Troy was the guide they relied on to bring it to life. However, Swamp People wasn't just about the hunt. It was about the people and the deep connections they had to their land, their traditions, and their families. Troy's story was one of hard work, dedication, and a deep respect for his heritage. His bond with his family, particularly his son Chase, was at the heart of the show. Together, they shared both moments of triumph and the occasional heartbreaking loss, making their dynamic all the more relatable for viewers. As Swamp People became a massive hit, Troy's popularity surged. Fans from all walks of life admired his genuine character, humor, and his unwavering dedication to his craft. His rise to stardom was not just a result of his skill, but also his authenticity. Troy was someone viewers could trust, someone they could imagine sitting down with to swap stories over a cold drink, even if their lives were completely different. But Troy's popularity wasn't without its complexities. As his fame grew, so did the demands of the show. The pressures of filming, maintaining his alligator hunting business, and managing his family life began to weigh heavily on him. Still, through it all, Troy remained a staple of Swamp People, entertaining viewers while juggling the responsibilities that came with both his career and his personal life. This dynamic is exactly what made Troy Landry stand out among other reality TV stars. He wasn't just a character on a show, he was a real person, facing real challenges, who brought his audience along for the ride. Troy's story was one of survival, both on and off the swamp, making him not just a reality TV star, but a living legend for many of his fans. But what fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, Troy was about to face an unimaginable tragedy that would change the course of his life forever. Troy Landry, once a larger-than-life figure on Swamp People, was not just a TV personality, he was a family man, a father, and a man of deep conviction. His connection to his family, especially his wife Bernita, was something that fans often admired. The Landry family had become the heart and soul of the show. Troy and Bernita's bond was one of strength, support, and deep love. They had been together for decades, with Bernita playing an integral role in both the household and the day-to-day operations of Troy's alligator hunting business. However, as Swamp People grew in popularity, so did the pressures that came with it. The constant filming, the grueling schedule, and the intense demands of the show took a toll not only on Troy but also on his family life. While the cameras captured the thrill of the hunt and Troy's tough exterior, behind closed doors, the Landry family was dealing with challenges that were far from the public's view. And then came the moment that would forever change their lives. The tragedy struck unexpectedly, hitting Troy and his family at their core. One day, out of nowhere, Bernita fell seriously ill. The news came as a shock to Troy, as Bernita had always been the rock of their household, strong, healthy, and a constant presence in Troy's life. For years, she had supported him through the highs and lows, from the rigors of the swamp to the stress of filming. But now it was she who needed support, and Troy found himself in an unimaginable situation. The details of Bernita's illness were kept private for some time, adding to the mystery and tension surrounding the tragedy. For Troy, it was a moment of pure uncertainty, a time when he didn't know what the future will hold. His world, which had been so secure and structured, suddenly felt like it was slipping away from him. As he tried to juggle filming and the deepening crisis at home, Troy's stoic demeanor started to show cracks. His strength was being tested in ways he never expected. Fans, who had grown so accustomed to seeing him as the fearless alligator hunter, now saw him in a much more vulnerable light. It wasn't just the illness that caused the pain. It was the unknown. The fear of losing someone so close to his heart, someone who had stood by him for so long, weighed heavily on Troy. He was left grappling with the possibility of losing not just his wife, but the woman who had been his partner, confidant, and best friend for so many years. The Landry family's private pain was soon shared with the public, as Troy began to reveal more about what was happening behind the scenes. Fans, who had adored Troy for years, now felt his pain. They were rooting for Bernita's recovery, hoping for a miracle, but the uncertainty of the situation loomed over Troy and his family. It was a heartbreaking moment that painted a stark contrast to the cheerful, go-getter persona that viewers had come to love. The tragedy was a cruel reminder that even the strongest among us are not immune to the hardships of life. While fans sent their well wishes, hoping for the best, Troy's world was crumbling around him. The emotional toll it took on him was apparent. Troy was a man of strength, but like many, he found himself on the edge of despair. Despite the outpouring of support from fans, the journey ahead was an uphill battle, and Troy was now faced with a new reality, one where everything he knew and loved seemed uncertain. But little did anyone know, this was just the beginning of an even more profound change for Troy Landry and his family. What happened next would alter the course of his life forever. As fans continued to watch Swamp People, they saw the success and the hard work that went into the alligator hunting business, but what many didn't realize was how much toll the reality of Troy Landry's personal life was taking. With Bernita's health worsening, Troy's focus began to shift away from the alligator hunts and the excitement of the show. It was clear that the man who once reveled in the thrill of the chase was now struggling to keep things together in the face of personal devastation. Troy had always been the face of Swamp People, known for his larger-than-life personality and his fearless approach to alligator hunting. His ability to navigate the dangerous waters of the bayou was legendary, and fans admired him for his grit and determination. Yet, behind the camera, the man they had come to know was dealing with a private battle. Every time the cameras stopped rolling, he had to return to the harsh reality of his wife's condition, facing the emotional weight of seeing her deteriorate. The toll this took on Troy was immense. As a man who had been used to handling physical challenges in the swamp, this new emotional strain was different. It was a weight he couldn't escape, no matter how many alligators he caught or how many days he spent working on the bayou. The Landry family had always kept their private life private, but the devastating illness of Bernita soon became an open secret to those close to them. Despite his usual stoicism, Troy began to lean on his friends and family more than ever before. Fans began to notice a shift in Troy's demeanor. The smile that once seemed ever-present now seemed rare. His usual confident, adventurous spirit was replaced by an air of concern and exhaustion. There were whispers about how this personal tragedy was affecting his work on the show, as it seemed that the stress was beginning to show in his performance. The Landry family had built a strong reputation for resilience, but now they were facing something beyond their control. This battle with illness wasn't the only strain that was visible. The pressures of filming during such a turbulent time were mounting. For Troy, it was no longer just about catching alligators for sport. The cameras, once an exciting way to document his life, now felt like a constant reminder of the public nature of his personal struggles. The crew would capture moments of vulnerability, moments where Troy had to step away from the show to be by his wife's side. The reality of filming in such an intimate and personal moment was difficult, but Troy was determined to keep pushing through. His loyalty to the show and his fans kept him going, even when it felt like his world was falling apart. Behind the scenes, Troy's bond with his family began to evolve. There were moments where he needed to rely on his son, Jacob, more than ever before. Troy's role as a father and provider began to take on a deeper meaning. Jacob, who had always been Troy's apprentice, was now stepping up to the plate in ways that few could have anticipated. With the alligator hunting business still needing attention, Jacob was slowly starting to take on more responsibility. This shift marked a pivotal moment in the Landry family dynamic, one where the next generation would have to help carry the weight. Despite the toll on Troy, he didn't lose his sense of responsibility. The Landry family's reputation as tough, hard-working swamp people was still intact, but the cracks in that tough exterior were becoming more apparent. Troy's vulnerability showed that even the most seemingly invincible people could be brought to their knees by the ones they love. This was a side of Troy Landry that viewers weren't used to seeing. The strong, unwavering alligator hunter now had to face the reality of potentially losing the most important person in his life. But this was far from the end of Troy's story. The challenges he faced during this time would set the stage for what was to come, and the heartbreak wasn't over yet. Despite the support of his family, the journey ahead was full of uncertainty. It was clear that Troy would need to confront even more difficult decisions. How would he cope with the next wave of tragedy that was coming? And how would his life change forever in the aftermath? The turning point in Troy Landry's journey came unexpectedly, like the snap of a twig in the thick of the bayou. Troy, who had always prided himself on his resilience and strength, now faced a personal loss that would shake him to his core. Bernita's condition had been worsening for months, but no one could have prepared Troy for the devastating news that would change his life forever. On a quiet day, when it seemed like life had slowed down for a brief moment, Troy received the call he had dreaded. Bernita had passed away. The woman who had been by his side through thick and thin, the one who had stood with him as they raised their children and built a life together, was no longer there. The weight of the news crushed him in an instant. For someone so used to fighting the challenges of the bayou, this was a battle he couldn't win. It was a loss that no amount of strength could prepare him for. The pain of losing Bernita was unimaginable. It wasn't just the loss of a partner. It was a loss of the one person who had been Troy's anchor, his confidant, and his constant support. The couple had been married for decades, and their bond was the foundation of the Landry family. Without Bernita by his side, Troy was faced with a void that could never be filled. The world that had once been full of adventure and challenges now seemed empty, and the bayou that had been his home for so long felt strangely quiet. As news of Bernita's passing spread, fans of swamp people were heartbroken. They had watched the Landry family's journey on television, seeing them go through ups and downs, but this was a tragedy that no one could have predicted. Many had grown fond of Bernita, who, despite rarely being in the spotlight, had become a beloved figure in the Swamp People universe. Her kind, supportive presence on the show had made her an integral part of Troy's story. To lose her, especially under such heartbreaking circumstances, was something that fans could hardly comprehend. Troy, ever the stoic figure, did his best to continue with his duties on the show. However, it was clear that the man who had once been larger than life now carried a profound sorrow. Filming schedules continued, and the crew continued to follow Troy and his family's every move, but the energy had shifted. There was a somber undertone to everything now. For the first time, the bayou didn't feel like a place of excitement and challenge. It felt like a constant reminder of the absence of the person who had helped keep everything together. The first few days after Bernita's passing were a blur for Troy. He struggled to come to terms with the reality that she was gone. It was during this period that Troy's vulnerability was revealed to the public. The man who had been known for his bravado and larger-than-life persona began to show a side of himself that few had ever seen before. It was raw, emotional, and for the first time in years, Troy was forced to confront the full extent of the grief that had taken hold of him. Yet, even in his darkest moments, Troy was not alone. His family rallied around him, providing the support and love he needed to navigate through the toughest time of his life. Jacob, his son, was by his side every step of the way, offering a sense of continuity in a world that suddenly felt upside down. Their bond, once forged in the heat of alligator hunts, was now stronger than ever as they faced this new, heartbreaking chapter together. The loss of Bernita marked a defining moment in Troy's life, a moment that would forever alter the course of the Landry family's story. It wasn't just the end of an era for the couple, it was the beginning of a new chapter for Troy. A chapter that would involve healing, rebuilding, and learning to live without the one person who had been the constant source of strength throughout his life. Would Troy be able to overcome this monumental loss, or would the grief prove to be an insurmountable challenge? The journey ahead was uncertain, and the road to healing would not be easy. Following Bernita's death, Troy Landry faced a period of deep introspection. The man who had once been known for his toughness and relentless pursuit of alligator hunting now found himself battling with an emotional and personal grief that was unfamiliar. He had spent years navigating the treacherous swamps and unpredictable dangers of the bayou, but now he was faced with an entirely different kind of challenge: the battle within himself. Despite the overwhelming sadness that threatened to consume him, Troy did his best to continue working. Life on the bayou couldn't stop just because of his grief. The alligator hunting season was in full swing, and Troy had his family to care for, but everything felt different now. The motivation that once came so naturally was no longer there. The joy that Troy once felt while out on the water, hunting for the massive creatures that call the swamps home, had been replaced by an all-encompassing emptiness. Troy, ever the proud man, kept his sorrow largely to himself. On the surface, it appeared as though he was carrying on as usual, working the same long hours in the swamp with his son Jacob. Yet, those close to him knew that something had changed. It was in the quiet moments when Troy would sit alone, or when he'd take a break during the long hot days in the bayou. There was a heaviness to his demeanor, an unspoken sadness that hung in the air. The fans of Swamp People noticed the shift too. Troy was no longer the lively, charismatic figure they had once seen on their television screens. Instead, the show now offered a glimpse into the life of a man who was coping with loss. Troy's vulnerability was now on full display, something many had never expected from a man so synonymous with strength and toughness. The emotional toll of losing Bernita was a reminder to viewers that even the strongest among us could be broken by grief. In an attempt to heal, Troy began reflecting on the life he had built with Bernita. He found solace in the memories they shared, those quiet, intimate moments when they would talk late into the night about their hopes, dreams, and challenges. It was through these memories that Troy was able to find comfort. Still, the pain of her absence was ever present, like a shadow that never fully disappeared. His relationship with his son, Jacob, grew even more critical during this time. Jacob, who had always been a central part of Troy's life and work, became the anchor that kept him grounded. The bond between father and son was undeniable, and in the wake of Bernita's death, Jacob's support became an essential part of Troy's healing process. The two of them would continue their alligator hunting trips, but now they did so with a sense of quiet reverence. It wasn't just about the hunt anymore. It was about honoring their past, their family, and the legacy that Bernita had left behind. Despite the ongoing struggle with grief, Troy refused to let it fully define him. His love for the swamp, for the work that had been a part of his life for so long, was still there, even if it had become clouded by sadness. As the days passed, Troy learned to carry his grief with him, instead of letting it control his every move. While he could never fully fill the void left by Bernita, he found strength in the lessons she had taught him and the love they had shared. But what was next for Troy? Would he be able to overcome this personal tragedy and continue on his path? Or would the weight of grief be too much for him to carry alone? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: Troy Landry's journey was far from over. His life on the bayou would continue, but would now be forever marked by the heartbreak that had shaken him to his core. And in the midst of this personal struggle, he had to find a way to move forward, not just for himself, but for his family and the legacy of his wife, Bernita. The bayou was calling, but Troy's heart remained heavy. Would he ever be able to truly heal? As Troy Landry continued to process the tragic loss of his beloved wife, Bernita, something remarkable began to unfold. While grief was an incredibly personal journey, it was clear that he was not alone in this difficult time. The fans who had followed Troy's story for years, especially those who had witnessed his incredible strength on Swamp People, reached out in droves, offering support, condolences, and encouragement. The outpouring of love and empathy from his fans became a lifeline for Troy. Social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter were flooded with messages from people who had been touched by his story. These messages, often deeply emotional, reminded Troy that even in his darkest hours, there were people who cared for him and his family. Fans expressed their admiration for the way Troy had handled the loss of Bernita, noting that his strength in the face of adversity had inspired them to keep pushing forward in their own lives. It wasn't just the fans who were providing Troy with much-needed support. His family was also a cornerstone of his healing process. Jacob, his son, had been his constant companion, both in the swamp and during this difficult period of grief. The bond between father and son had never been stronger. They leaned on each other as they navigated life without Bernita. Jacob, ever the optimistic and hardworking individual, encouraged his father to keep going, reminding him of the legacy that they were carrying forward together. It was through these shared moments of work and family that Troy found the strength to continue. Troy's extended family also played a critical role in his healing. Bernita's relatives remained close, offering support and comfort as they all dealt with the shared loss. This network of love and community helped Troy stay grounded as he faced the overwhelming challenge of rebuilding his life. It wasn't easy, but little by little, he found that he could begin to accept the reality of his new life. The support from his family gave him hope that life would continue, even if it would never be the same. For Troy, the immense support from fans and family did not lessen the pain of his loss, but it provided him with something priceless: the reminder that he wasn't walking this path alone. While grief could often feel isolating, the collective love from people who cared about him helped alleviate the loneliness that could so easily overwhelm someone in his situation. The messages and gestures of kindness acted as reminders that, despite the unimaginable pain he was feeling, there was still love and light in his world. One unexpected but deeply meaningful act of support came from his Swamp People castmates. The crew and fellow alligator hunters, many of whom had worked alongside Troy for years, reached out to him to offer both moral and emotional support. While the show's filming schedule remained demanding, the team made it clear that Troy's well-being was paramount. These individuals, who would become more like family over time, provided him with the comforting knowledge that no matter what, they were there for him. The tragedy also brought out a side of Troy that was less seen on camera, the emotional, vulnerable side of him that was now a part of his public persona. Fans, who had come to know Troy as a tough, fearless man who could take on anything, now saw him in a different light. His vulnerability made him more relatable, more human. In turn, this helped create an even deeper connection with his audience. It was as if fans felt as though they were grieving with him. Many offered kind words about how his strength, despite his pain, was a beacon of hope for others who had gone through similar losses. The impact of this fan support became even more profound when Troy took the time to acknowledge it. He would post updates on social media, thanking everyone for their kind words. These heartfelt responses not only gave fans a sense of being involved in Troy's journey, but they also allowed Troy to connect with others who had experienced similar losses. He found solace in knowing that he wasn't alone in his grief, and that his story was helping others process their own pain. While Troy's journey through grief was far from over, the support he received from his fans and family gave him the strength he needed to continue forward. It was this love and community that acted as a guiding force, helping him honor the memory of his wife while also moving forward with his life, one step at a time. It was a reminder that even in the most challenging of times, the power of human connection could offer comfort and healing. The love and support didn't stop there. In fact, it seemed to grow stronger over time, proving that, in a world that often feels uncertain and cold, kindness could still shine through when it was needed the most. For Troy, this proved to be the key to not just surviving, but thriving through the storm of grief that had threatened to drown him. His journey was far from over, but now he had a newfound sense of strength, knowing that his family and fans were with him every step of the way. After months of mourning the loss of his wife Bernita, Troy Landry found himself at a crossroads. The pain was still raw, the memories of the past too difficult to fully comprehend, but the demands of life and the need for healing soon called him back to the one place he knew best, the swamp. This return was not just about returning to work, it was about finding purpose again, and more importantly, about connecting with the world that had always understood him best. For Troy, the swamp wasn't just a job. It was a way of life, a lifeline that had anchored him even during the toughest of times. But after Bernita's passing, it was hard to imagine how he could continue to face the place that had always been so full of life, laughter, and shared memories. Yet, Troy knew that staying away wouldn't help. He realized that to move forward, he would need to return to the swamp, not just to hunt alligators, but to reclaim a piece of himself that had been lost. The return to the swamp was both a physical and emotional journey. As Troy navigated the familiar waters in his boat, he was flooded with memories of his life with Bernita. The couple had spent so many years together, working alongside each other, building a family and a life in this very swamp. Every tree, every ripple in the water, and every turn on the muddy trails felt like a reminder of the love and partnership they had shared. It wasn't just the memories of Bernita that were overwhelming. There was also the weight of returning to a world where he had to continue without her. For the first time in years, Troy found himself facing the swamp not as a couple, but as a man alone in his grief. His emotions were raw, and the sense of loss was inescapable. But with each passing day, Troy found himself slowly reconnecting with the land he knew so well, and the process of healing began to take shape. Returning to the swamp also meant returning to the fans who had supported him. These fans, who had seen Troy through thick and thin, were eager to see him back. They knew how much he had been through, and his return to the swamp symbolized a sense of resilience and perseverance. His fans knew the man who had faced challenges before, and they knew this time would be no different. It wasn't just about the alligators, it was about Troy Landry, the symbol of strength and tenacity that so many had come to admire. Troy's son, Jacob, played an even bigger role during this time. As the new generation of alligator hunters in the Landry family, Jacob was Troy's greatest source of support on the water. Jacob had grown into a skilled hunter in his own right, and together, father and son worked tirelessly to continue their family's legacy. But it wasn't just about the work, it was about spending time together, creating new memories that would honor Bernita's memory while helping them both heal. In a way, the return to the swamp wasn't just for Troy. It was for the family and fans who had watched him for so many years. Fans had been invested in his life, and they needed to see him heal. Troy's return to the swamp symbolized resilience, showing that even after losing the love of his life, he could still carry on. His strength was something fans could relate to, something they could learn from as they faced their own struggles in life. But Troy's return wasn't an easy one. The pain of his loss still lingered in every corner of his world. Every time he cast his net or worked the waters, it was like an emotional tug-of-war between the past and the present. Troy often found himself reflecting on the legacy he and Bernita had built in the swamp. The memories of their life together were still fresh, making it even harder to embrace the future without her by his side. Yet, this was the path that Troy had to walk, and he chose to walk it with grace, strength, and the unwavering support of his family. The fans, too, understood the emotional gravity of the moment. Every time Troy shared an update on social media or appeared on the show, they saw a man still grappling with loss, but also moving forward in honor of the life he had built with Bernita. For them, it wasn't just about watching a show. It was about witnessing a story of healing, resilience, and love that would resonate for years to come. While the journey to healing would not be quick or easy, Troy's return to the swamp marked a powerful step forward. It was a reminder that no matter how devastating life's challenges may be, we all have the capacity to rebuild, to honor our loved ones, and to find strength in the places and people we cherish. Troy's story was no longer just about hunting alligators. It was about continuing to live and thrive after unimaginable loss. And in the swamp, surrounded by his family and the memories of Bernita, Troy began the long road to finding peace. As Troy Landry continued his journey through grief and healing, his story became more than just one of a man who hunted alligators. It evolved into a powerful testament to the legacy of the Landry family, a legacy that had been built on decades of hard work, resilience, and an unwavering bond between Troy and his beloved wife Bernita. While the loss was still very much present in his life, Troy found solace in knowing that the family's heritage was something that could not be erased, even by the darkest of times. The Landry family's connection to the swamp had been passed down through generations. For Troy, the swamp was not just his job, it was a part of who he was, part of his identity. And now, as he navigated life without Bernita by his side, it became even clearer that this bond to the swamp was something that would endure beyond his own lifetime. While the work was physically demanding, it was in the swamp that Troy found purpose, and that purpose would continue to fuel his strength in the face of unimaginable loss. Bernita had always been Troy's closest companion and the emotional anchor of their family. Together, they had raised their children, built a life, and worked hard to create a successful business. But beyond that, they had shared a deep love and respect for each other, with Bernita always providing the emotional support that Troy needed. Her absence left a void in Troy's life that no amount of work or time spent in the swamp could easily fill. But as he slowly returned to the work he knew best, he found that he was not alone in carrying on the legacy that Bernita had been such an integral part of. Troy's son, Jacob, played an increasingly important role in the family's business. As the next generation of alligator hunters, Jacob had watched his father and mother work tirelessly to provide for the family. In the years leading up to Bernita's passing, Jacob had grown into a capable and skilled hunter in his own right. But after the loss, Jacob became even more committed to ensuring the family's legacy continued. For Troy, seeing Jacob step up and take on more responsibility was both heartwarming and bittersweet. It was a symbol of life moving forward, but also a painful reminder that Bernita was no longer there to witness the growth of their children into adulthood. Jacob wasn't the only one who stepped up during this time. Troy's other family members, including cousins and close friends, rallied around him. The bond between the Landry family was stronger than ever, and it became clear that Troy was not alone in carrying the weight of both the business and the emotional toll of losing Bernita. Troy often spoke of how his family's support helped him keep going, even on the days when it felt like the pain was too much to bear. In many ways, the tragedy had galvanized the Landry family, reminding them of how important it was to stick together through both good times and bad. Even in the face of the swamp's dangers and hardships, the family came together, determined to honor Bernita's memory and continue the work that she had been so integral to. It wasn't just about alligator hunting anymore. It was about ensuring that the legacy of love, hard work, and family carried on for future generations. The fans who had followed Troy and his family for so many years also played an essential role in this journey. Their unwavering support provided a sense of comfort and encouragement, and Troy began to see just how much his life story had resonated with people across the country. They weren't just watching him on TV, they were walking alongside him, sharing his heartache and celebrating his triumphs. It was this connection with fans that made the journey of healing just a little bit easier. Every message of encouragement, every fan who reached out to express their support, reminded Troy that his story was more than just a TV show. It was a reflection of the strength and resilience found in every person who had ever faced hardship and loss. As Troy's story continued to unfold, it was clear that his legacy was far from over. His role in preserving the traditions of the Landry family was essential not only to the success of their business, but to the future of their community. For Troy, the swamp wasn't just a place. It was a living, breathing entity that represented everything he had worked for, everything he had lost, and everything he still had to look forward to. In the face of loss, he had found something even more powerful: the unbreakable strength of family, love, and legacy. With each passing day, as Troy worked alongside Jacob and the rest of his family, the swamp began to feel less like a place of sorrow and more like a sanctuary, a place where memories of Bernita lived on, not in grief, but in love. Through this journey of healing, Troy Landry began to realize that while the pain of losing his wife would never completely disappear, the love they shared would continue to guide him, as he carried on the family's legacy in the swamp for years to come. When news of Troy Landry's heartbreaking tragedy spread, the Swamp People community and fans around the world responded in the most compassionate way imaginable. The flood of support and empathy that Troy and his family received was overwhelming, serving as a testament to the deep connection between the cast and their audience. Many viewers who had followed Troy's journey through the swamps felt like they knew him personally, and they could not have been more heartbroken by the pain he was going through. From the moment the news broke, heartfelt messages and tributes began pouring in from fans across social media platforms. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, people shared their condolences, some posting pictures of Troy with his family, and others writing personal stories of how his presence on Swamp People had impacted their lives. "We're with you, Troy," one fan wrote on Facebook. "You're part of our family, and we will stand by you through this dark time." These words weren't just comforting. They were a reflection of the emotional connection Troy had built with his audience over the years. As more tributes poured in, the Landry family received an outpouring of love from not only fans but also fellow cast members. Several of Troy's co-stars on Swamp People expressed their condolences publicly. Many mentioned how much Troy meant to them both on and off the screen, describing him as a mentor, a friend, and a source of constant strength. The support wasn't just limited to comments online. It was evident in the form of physical gestures as well. Fans took to sending cards, flowers, and even donations to causes close to Troy's heart in his family's honor. Some fans even held virtual memorials, where they shared their favorite moments from the show, reminiscing about the good times they had seen Troy and his family experience on the screen. This emotional show of support was incredibly healing for Troy, knowing that people cared so deeply about him and his family. What stood out the most during this time was how the Swamp People community rallied together, offering emotional comfort, prayers, and well wishes. Whether it was an encouraging word or a simple note expressing sympathy, it helped Troy, who had always been there for his fans, to feel that the love and care was reciprocated. Many fans also shared how watching Troy's resilience in the face of hardship inspired them to be stronger in their own lives, turning their admiration for Troy into a two-way support system. For Troy, these messages provided a sense of hope during the darkest times. While nothing could replace the devastating loss he experienced, the support from his fans helped him regain the strength to keep going. Through each comment and tribute, Troy found solace in knowing that his community was there for him, just as he had been there for them. It was a powerful reminder that the Swamp People cast, and Troy in particular, had earned the love and admiration of so many through their authentic selves. In the end, the love and support from fans played a pivotal role in Troy's healing process. They reminded him of the power of kindness, community, and shared experiences. The tragedy, while devastating, also became a turning point, bringing Troy and his fans even closer together and reinforcing the unbreakable bond they shared. This outpouring of love highlighted the true impact of Swamp People. It wasn't just a show. It was a connection, and for Troy, it was the comfort he needed in his time of grief. As the dust settled and time passed, the legacy of Troy Landry continued to shine brightly, not only because of his role on Swamp People, but because of the man he was, both on and off the screen. The tragedy he faced, while heartbreaking, did not define him. Instead, it was his strength, his resilience, and the unwavering love of his family and fans that ultimately defined his legacy. Troy Landry was never just a television personality. He was the embodiment of perseverance, grit, and the values of family and community. His life in the bayous of Louisiana, hunting alligators and living alongside nature, gave me a unique perspective that he shared with millions. He was relatable not because of his fame, but because of his authenticity. Viewers saw a man who worked hard, faced adversity, and faced his challenges with unwavering dedication. That was the essence of his character, and it became even more clear in the wake of his personal tragedy. The fans, who had followed Troy for years, saw a man who never faltered in his commitment to his craft, his family, and his roots. His emotional openness, his ability to cope with the hardest of circumstances, and the manner in which he handled the support of his fans all showcased the depth of his character. Even in moments of sorrow, Troy's resilience served as a shining example to those who looked up to him, teaching them how to deal with their own struggles in life. In the face of tragedy, Troy was reminded of the value of what truly mattered: love, community, and connection. His unwavering dedication to his family, particularly his wife, and the bond they shared, became even more meaningful as he worked through his grief. The legacy he leaves behind is not defined by the hardships he endured, but by the way he chose to live through them, remaining steadfast, determined, and humble. Troy Landry's life also served as a reminder that fame does not separate a person from their humanity. Despite being a reality TV star, Troy was always relatable to his audience because he remained grounded in his values. His genuine nature made him a beloved figure, not just a television character. And it's this authenticity that fans will remember long after the cameras have stopped rolling. Today, his story is one of inspiration, a story of a man who has faced immense challenges, who has grieved deeply, and who has carried on with strength, dignity, and grace. For Troy, the journey wasn't just about surviving. It was about continuing to live with a sense of purpose grounded in his roots. The love he shares with his family and the unwavering support from his fans are lasting tributes to his strength. As we reflect on Troy Landry's life, it becomes clear that his impact extends far beyond the television screen. His legacy is one of family, courage, and the importance of never giving up, no matter how tough life gets. And as we continue to watch the show and hear his story, we'll remember the quiet strength of a man who embodied everything that made Swamp People so special. In the end, Troy Landry's story is not just one of tragedy, but one of triumph, proving that even in the darkest of times, there is hope and there is light. Troy Landry's story is a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Despite facing overwhelming loss, he's remained a pillar of strength for his family and fans. The outpouring of love from his followers, the unbreakable bond with his family, and his unwavering will to persevere show us all what it means to live through hardship. We hope you found this video insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.